Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful January the 17th, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if I'm tired or relaxed. I was sitting out on my deck drinking one of those luscious bottles of California wine that you so generously sent to me after all of your prop bets that did not come through. And I got yelled at because I was sitting out there coming to the house because it had gotten dark. So if I fall asleep during the show, just yell in my ear like I got yelled at on my deck.
Yeah, well, it's all fair and level war. You know, California has a lot of good wine, so I'm glad you could enjoy it. It's for sipping, not for drinking the whole bottle, Big C.
Well, you know, I don't want the wine to go bad. I hear once it gets too much air, it's no longer the same. So I figured it was only 750 milliliters, so I might as well just consume it all.
Yeah, it says drink one glass at a time, not one bottle at a time. It's all fair and level war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Also, Big C Sports, powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our national sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Want to make sure going into this beautiful weekend for football deciding to crown, you know, their NFC and an AFC champion. I want to make sure we give out our national military hotline, helping people who need help. We know all the things that people go through. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 that gets in help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, as they will salute to the veterans prior to the games and put the flags out on the field and all that. That's just on Sunday. These veterans are there 7 days a week, and we got to find a way to help these veterans out. Suicide has become such a horrific disease with the veterans. I know we give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, but all the veterans don't have access to cell phones.
That's right.
Many of our veterans are homeless and destitute and don't have access to many of the basic necessities and facilities that we have today. We got to find a way to get them access to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, because they need a voice to lean on, someone to talk to who doesn't judge them.
Yep.
And so if we can find ways, and I know the government have ways to give out cell phones to these veterans that are homeless, that are destitute. Many of them don't have addresses. But if you see a veteran and you see them needing someone to talk to other than you, lend them your cell phone. Call that number for them, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. I know we have a lot of football to get into. Really happy about what's going on in the world of the NFL football. I know so many people didn't finish where they started. A lot of teams, when you think about it, Big C, you know, football really is year-round. It really is a year-round business. Maybe guys can take a whole month off, but they're always working out. And we talked about the Hall of Fame and, you know, what coaches got in. Still, you know, this week with all the coaches that got in. And when they did a little grandstanding on TV for Jimmy Johnson and Coach Bill Cowher, congratulations to those guys. But I just wanted to make sure I said it this week with the football back in Northern California. Tom Flores won, you know, 2 Super Bowls. You know, played in 2 more. So he has 4 rings. He has rings as assistant coach and also a player. 82 years old. He played at a high school called Sanger High School down in the Central Valley south of Fresno. Played at Fresno City College. He went to the University of the Pacific, and that program is now, you know, they tore that program. They tore the stadium down in Castle football. John Gruden also played there. Pete Carroll also played there. John Gruden coached there. Pete Carroll played there at UOP.
Marvin Lewis also played there.
Marvin Lewis, the great Marvin Lewis. But think about this, Big C. Flores won 97 games, including 83-53 run with the Raiders from 1979 to 1987. He was even better in the postseason. This is incredible. Now, I know we talk about race because we're honest. We talk about, sexism, whatever it is. We just want people to have dialogue. But when you have Jimmy Johnson, and I'm not knocking them, Jimmy Johnson and Coach Cowher, they get this grandstanding where they interrupt the TV coverage to let these guys know they're inducted into the Hall of Fame. Well, Tom Flores, his playoff record, he was 8-3 in the playoffs. He won at 73% winning percentage. He ranked second in the universe to only one coach in the history of the NFL, and that's the great late Vince Lombardi. Among those coaches that have 10 or more playoff games. Tom Flores, think about that. So, and as much as I congratulate what Jimmy Johnson did and Coach Cowher, it's anathema to not mention this guy. Now, one more thing before I throw it to you, and I know we're going to get into some football. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles in 1980, and it was 27-10. Tom Flores coached that team. They also put a big beat down on the Washington Redskins in 1983. They beat them 38-9. Now, when you think about that, the Raiders under Flores in both of his Super Bowl wins, nobody scored more than 10 points, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, as I look at Tom Flores and his illustrious career as an NFL head coach, one of the greatest coaches that ever coached, Charlton, by the record. And you think about coaches that he beat. Joe Gibbs is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he trounced Joe Gibbs' Redskins.
Yeah.
And he was a wild card team when he did that, Charlton, with the great Marcus Allen in the backfield along with Jim Plunkett.
Yeah.
You think about what he did to Dick Vermeil's Eagles in the Super Bowl. We talked about Harold Carmichael being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Dick Vermeil will go into the Hall of Fame before Tom Flores does. You think about this. He is the only NFL coach with 2 Super Bowl victories. He hasn't lost in the Super Bowl.
No.
He has 2 Super Bowl victories. He has a Super Bowl victory as an assistant coach with the 1977 Oakland Raiders when they beat up on the Minnesota Vikings in Pasadena.
Yep.
He has a Super Bowl ring as a player. He's the backup quarterback to Len Dawson in Super Bowl IV in New Orleans when the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know what much you have to do as a player and as a coach to get into the NFL Hall of Fame. And as I look at Tom Flores being ostracized from this illustrious select group of gentlemen who will be immortalized forever in the football annals, what's wrong with getting this man in while he's alive? Not wait to postmortem and putting him in the Hall of Fame. You show me 2 coaches that are more deserving than Tom Flores in the last 10 years getting put into the NFL Hall of Fame.
It's a crazy world because, we're going back to the late 70s and the 80s, Big C, when we talk about Tom Flores. And, as a coach, we didn't have the Rooney Rule then. You think about that. We did not have the Rooney Rule. And even the great John Madden that had 1 Super Bowl win with the same team the Oakland Raiders won. And he's in the Hall of Fame. And I know if you don't have honest dialogue, then people pretend that it doesn't exist. But the Rooney Rule would also have benefited coaches to this. No coach that was hired out of this new coaching vacancy was a person of color. And people say, okay, can't we get past that stuff? Well, if you imagine being a white guy and you have 4 Super Bowl rings, you won 2 as a coach and the other as an assistant and as a player, and another coach for the same team that you coached got in with 1 win, and you didn't get in, and he happened to be white. And imagine if you're a white guy, and you have the most wins over a minority coach, and he gets in, but you can't even get a job interview. And imagine if they came up with a rule that said you got to hire white guys, you got to give them, let's just call it the Bob rule, because not enough Bobs are not getting jobs. Well, don't think that this hasn't been going on a long time. but I hope that we can fix it. I know a lot of guys don't want to talk about it because they're naive or they're just whatever they are, but that's still a shame that this stuff is still going on. As we talk about going into the Super Bowl 54, we got a man that already won 2, and they act like he didn't win any. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is American society at its best. What I love most about talk radio, about talk television, Charlton, is that everybody is trying to ask somebody that is a minority what is their perspective on these situations.
Yeah.
Why can't the anchors of all these shows be honest and just be straight up about it, instead of bringing on a host or a co-anchor and asking them the question when they are a minority?
Yeah.
Why doesn't the Anglo broadcaster really tell the story of what we're dealing with in society? We dealt with this a couple of weeks ago, Charlton, when they were always asking about minority players.
Yeah.
Why is this situation occurring? What is your perspective on this? Why can't you tell us? You know, we should not have to answer the question for what white people are doing. We don't have the answers for what white people are doing. We know the disgruntlement as a minority that we have because of what white people are doing. We look at the coaching search in the NFL. There's no minority coaches interviewed. I think Marvin Lewis was interviewed, by Jerry Jones, and he wasn't going to hire. There was no way that Jerry Jones was going to hire a black head coach.
Yeah.
But that was the only black head coach to get, potential prospect that got an interview. Eric Bieniemy. You're going to tell me that Eric Bieniemy, in the last 2 years with the most sophisticated offense in the NFL, can't get a job interview? Matt Nagy did 1 year as the offensive coordinator in Kansas City with Alex Smith and got the job interview.
Yeah.
Eric Bieniemy took over after him with Patrick Mahomes and blew away the numbers that Matt Nagy had in Kansas City and can't get a job interview.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah, we know why, because there's still discrimination, and we just want to point it out. I think when people go to a doctor, you just want the truth. You want the truth so you can fix what's going on. And you don't want them lying to you because they want to make you feel good. And so even my white brethren, I don't want to lie to you or talk to you to make you feel good, because you're in the side that's never faced discrimination. I just want to know what it's like when you can look at a guy that has 4 rings and you pretend he doesn't exist, and guys that got 1 ring, you can't wait to stand up on TV and say how great of a coach they are. And even those men, you would think they say, wait a minute, what about my other brethren? My coaching brethren, the guy with 4 rings. Where is he? I just think that's a shame that they grandstand with 2 white coaches and ignoring the Rooney Rule. And people say, hey, what an emotional speech. What a great, lacrimal speech. That Cowher and Johnson came to tears. They came to tears, and they don't have what Flores has. And then we made it seem like, oh, what a great induction to the Hall of Fame. The more you rob people of results, the more you lessen your product. The Hall of Fame, if you don't fix that, it becomes less valuable. That's just my opinion. Big C, I want to get on to some football, because you can love something and chastise it like you can have a child. If you love your child, you tell them the truth. It doesn't mean they're going to listen, but they can never say they didn't hear the truth. And I'd like to call for my white brethren to explain why racism is so important to hold on to. Quit asking black men and Hispanic men, tell us about how it feels. Ask the guys in the power structure. AFC Championship game, Big C. One thing that has changed, it will provide new blood for Super Bowl 54, and it's slated for February. Think about this. February the 2nd is going to be a 6:30 kickoff Eastern Time on Fox. The Titans, their only a Super Bowl appearance was 20 years ago. The Chiefs last appeared. They last appeared 50 years ago, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, there's a lifetime between and Tom Flores. We're talking about 50 years ago. Tom Flores was a member of that Kansas City Chiefs team 50 years ago. Wouldn't it have been ironic if they'd have put him into the Hall of Fame in the Centennial class this year, Charlton, for being a part of that Chiefs team that beat the Minnesota Vikings in New Orleans for the Super Bowl? The Tennessee Titans was led by the late, great Steve McNair. But when they got to the Super Bowl against the Los Angeles Rams, and Eric Dyson just missed the touchdown by about a yard, Charlton, at the end of the game to both hopefully put Tennessee ahead. But it was the Rams' first Super Bowl win with the greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans are back. They're the wild card team, Charlton, hoping to get to the Super Bowl. we look at them being led by Derrick Henry. Everyone talks about the quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. This team is led by Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
The last team that got to the Super Bowl with the NFL leading rusher was Terrell Davis leading the Denver Broncos against the Green Bay Packers, Charlton, when he led the NFL in rushing, and they went on to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
This is the only hope for the Tennessee Titans is when you think about this great running back.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if Tannehill, if you can call on him to win the game. They have 2 playoff wins, Charlton, and Tannehill is yet to pass 400 yards in either one of them.
Yeah. And Big C, I want to do something that only Big C Sports in the universe, the only Big C Sports will do this. I want to do our own induction into the Pro Football Coaches Hall of Fame. We talked about how great Tom Flores was. He played at Sanger High School down in Central California. They named the stadium after him. Went to Fresno City College. Went on to play football at the University of the Pacific in Stockton. And we know what he did with the Raiders, Big C, but he was also a member of that Chiefs team 50 years ago. On Big C Sports, I want to induct the great Tom Flores into the NFL Football Hall of Fame. And all I ask all you sports brethren in the universe to just look at what we said about his record. He's the second winningest playoff coach in the history of the game outside of the trophy they're all trying to play for, the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Big C just told you he was on that Chiefs team 50 years ago. Wouldn't it have been amazing that they're giving out the trophy, the Vince Lombardi Trophy, the only coach who has more wins in playoffs than Tom Flores in a 10-year span, and they're giving it to him the same year they inducted him to the Hall of Fame. So Big C Sports would do it first, and you'll probably hear the NFL do it sometime later. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what I would like for the NFL induction committee and senior committee to look at is that how many coaches have more Super Bowl wins than Tom Flores. I want them to, the senior committee, to also look at how many quarterbacks are in the NFL Hall of Fame that have more Super Bowl wins than Jim Plunkett. And look at how many have less Super Bowl wins than Jim Plunkett. Everybody's talking about Eli Manning being a Hall of Famer. He has 2 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
He has a 500 record. Jim Plunkett's record is better than that.
Yeah.
So if Eli Manning can get into the Hall of Fame, we know Jim Plunkett deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Sonny Jurgensen is in, and he's a sub-500 quarterback and never won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Joe Namath is in. He's a sub-500 quarterback and only won 1 Super Bowl. Jim Plunkett should be in the Hall of Fame. If those scrubs can be in there, he definitely deserves to be in there.
And that's why I say that Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. And I'm saying that because I want all the NFL brethren and everybody who hears our show to pass along that information and just realize that what you're getting from mainstream is watered down, called whitewashed, because they don't want you to know this stuff. But you got to Google it. And if we're wrong, then make us look stupid. But if we're right, then make the other guys who ignore those numbers look stupid. Just do your homework when you go to the doctor. Do you want the doctor to tell you the truth, or do you want him to lie to you? We're just asking you to tell yourself the truth. Google it. We just told you Tom Flores and the great Jim Plunkett. And we know it's going to happen, but Big C Sports did it first, and that's why I say we're the vote of the #1 sports show in the universe. Just Google that. Big C also, when we look at the NFC Championship game, and we'll break down some of the numbers coming up, NFC Championship game, it offers a matchup of 2 teams that are familiar with the Super Bowl, the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. The Green Bay Packers, they're going to have to be at their best to topple San Francisco. This 49er team beat them 37-8 in Week 12. Conversely, the 49ers probably want to get in and get a big lead early and apply a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. You cannot let a guy who's been there before understand that he has a chance coming down to the wire the way the 49ers did in their win and loss to Seattle, and also with the way the Packers and the Seahawks played down to the wire in Green Bay last week. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the last time that the Packers were in this position, it was against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons went on to the Super Bowl. When I look at these 2 teams, Charlton, in contrast, the Green Bay Packers go through Aaron Jones, the running back. As he goes, the Packers go. He's the engine that drives that offense. Everyone talks about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is his understudy.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers' success will only depends on how well Aaron Jones goes. We know Davante Adams can get over the top on any defense. He's one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. I don't know if anybody from San Francisco can match up with him. They talk about this great defensive line that the 49ers have. It's led by Armstead and Buckner. Bosa gets all the publicity, but it's Armstead and Buckner who really drives that defensive line. And you look at Dee Ford. Now that he's healthy, this defensive line has become complete. When he was out, this defensive line struggled. Dee Ford is back, and the 49ers are a complete defensive line with Dee Ford. That secondary, I'm not always sure about the secondary with the 49ers. I know Sherman gets a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
People say they don't throw it. People will throw at Sherman in this game. You put Devontae Adams on it. I like Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. That offensive line, Balaga is back at left tackle for the Packers. He wasn't there in that last time that they met. He'll be that back support on Aaron Rodgers' backside. When you think about the 49ers, Tevin Coleman controlled this game for the 49ers against the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
But when your cousin couldn't complete any passes to his receivers, that really helped out the 49ers. I don't see Aaron Rodgers being in that same position. I don't know if Tevin Coleman can have back-to-back 100-yard games on the ground, especially with the Packers coming in, Charlton. That defensive line for the Packers is much better than what people give them credit for.
Yeah, it's amazing when people think about the second time meeting anybody that it's going to be an easy win. And for the Bay Area media, the last 49ers have hosted the NFC Championship game. They lost that game to the Giants. And also, they had a loss to the Packers, and the Packers went on to Super Bowl 33 down in San Diego at the time, and they lost that game to the Denver Broncos. So this team has won when they've been on the road, at least, closing out, being able to go to Super Bowls. I still give the 49ers the advantage, but I do want to ask your thoughts too, because we talk about this thing that you always bring up. You're down, say, 28-24. You got 2 minutes left in the game. You got to drive the ball 80 yards. Well, do you trust Jimmy Garoppolo or do you trust Aaron Rodgers? One guy's done it before over a couple of decades. One guy hasn't. I want to get Big C's thoughts. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I think this is about trusting the head coaches in this situation. You got Kyle Shanahan and LaFleur as head coaches. These two coaches have grown up with each other, Charlton, starting back with the Washington Redskins. They moved on to the Houston Texans, then the Atlanta Falcons. Now they both are head coaches with their own teams, Charlton. They know each other so well. That's the key that I look at. We talk about a quarterback having the ball in his hands in the last 2 minutes. Both of these quarterbacks have been able to close out games. We saw Aaron Rodgers close out against Seattle last week. Even though he didn't put any points on the scoreboard, he was able to keep the clock turning.
Yeah.
We've seen Garoppolo able to keep the ball out of an opposing team's hand. We saw what he did against New Orleans when he moved down in the last 2 minutes and won that game. Everyone says the quarterback in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's what his teammates can do. Can his receivers beat the coverage, Charlton, down the field? The quarterback always has the ability to throw the ball, but can the receivers get open and hold it?
Yeah, I really feel there's this thing about Sherman. In all of his playoff games over his whole career, he's never had anyone score a touchdown against him. But they don't want to have Adams going up against Sherman. In fact, the 49ers can move Sherman away from him. But we'll see what happens if they happen to match up. I just wouldn't test going at him just to try to prove your ego, whatever that is. But we never know what happens. But the Niners are favored by 7.5. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen. I know Kittle had a little tape on his ankle. But guys, they'll numb up. They'll shoot up. They'll do what they got to do. An ankle's not going to stop a guy from playing in the game. I know we're not into predicting games. But to me, it feels like the 49ers, if both teams are playing, at their best, it looks to me like the 49ers will have the chance to get back to the Super Bowl for the first time since the great Colin Kaepernick went there. And we started the show, Big C Sports inducted the great Tom Flores into the NFL Hall of Fame based on his credentials, Big C, on his credibility, on his record, the second winningest NFL coach in a 10-year span to only the great late Vince Lombardi, and that's the trophy everybody's playing for. So when it goes back to Colin Kaepernick, and the man also this year tried to get a job, whether he did it the right way or not, they're always making someone feel, well, you didn't do it right. You didn't smile enough, or you didn't shake the hand the right way, or you should have walked in the door with your left hand first, and you should have worn a blue tie, you wore a red tie. It's always something. We know the man has been ostracized, and now we have the same organization with a chance to go back to glory And the last time they went, he led them there. They may want to pretend it doesn't exist, like Tom Flores. Give me your feeling. Does it stain the 49ers at all, Big C, that they just haven't told the truth about what Colin Kaepernick was doing? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, football moves on. I mean, regardless of Colin Kaepernick or any other great player in this league, the league moves on. The league is bigger than any individual. We always think about, as from a fan perspective and a broadcasting perspective, of individual players. But the reason why we talk about these individual players, Charlton, is what they've done before.
Yeah.
The league has progressively moved on. If you look at the 49ers organization, it hasn't taken a step back, it's taken a step forward. They're back in the NFC Championship game, Charlton, something they did several years ago with Colin Kaepernick. But in between, they had a lot of downtime, but now they're back. You think about the runs that they had with Jeff Garcia, Steve Young, Joe Montana.
Yeah.
They made the NFC Championship game. But there was a long run between Jeff Garcia and Colin Kaepernick. So now it's back. The cycle continues to move on in NFL. It's not going to wait for any individual. It's like when players retire. Does the league stop when they say, well, this player retired young? When Barry Sanders retired, the greatest running back probably in the NFL.
Yeah.
Did the league stop running the ball? No. You think about Robert Smith when he retired several years ago with the Minnesota Vikings after leading the league in rushing when the Vikings had the greatest offense in the league.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to go get his doctorate because he knew he would be a doctor a lot longer than he would be a football player. The league moves on from everybody.
Yep, they really do, Big C. So both teams, going into this dynamic football contest with a chance to get back to glory, and we'll see what happens. Is it the California Gold, or will it be the Wisconsin Cheese? I think it's going to be gold, Big C. I want to step into the AFC Championship game. It's going to be a 3:30 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. Tennessee Titans, they're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. And so many people like what the Chiefs have been able to do. The Titans coming in 9-7, Chiefs coming in at 12-4. And the Chiefs are favored by 7.5, a lot like the 49ers are over their nemesis, the Green Bay Packers. The Titans, you think about this team was not expected to get past New England by many people because they were the underdog. They were not favored to get by Baltimore by many people. They were the underdog. Well, they found their way to Kansas City, and they're also the underdog. They must try to jump out to a big lead and force Kansas City to do what they did last week against Houston, was to try to come from behind. If they let Kansas City get out in front, your running game is not going to be as effective. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Kansas City is back where everybody thought they would be in the AFC Championship game. Tennessee is a surprise team for everybody. Tennessee has gotten there by running the ball. We know in the past that Kansas City has had a very anemic defense. Their best defensive player, Chris Jones, is going to be suspect for this game. He's had a hamstring, Charlton, for the last 2 weeks. He is quintessential to the Chiefs' defense effectiveness against Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about the Titans, they beat the Chiefs earlier in the season. It was a high-scoring affair.
35-32.
It was one of two games that the Titans had over 30 points during the season, Charlton.
Yeah.
So the Titans are no strangers to playing the Chiefs. They understand what the Chiefs can and cannot do. When we look at Patrick Mahomes, he was in this situation a year ago. He lost the coin flip and didn't get a chance to touch the ball at overtime.
That's right.
I don't know if Patty Mahomes is going to be in that situation this year, Charlton, where he's willing to let his team get to a point where it comes down to a blocked field goal like they had earlier in the season against the Tennessee Titans and lost that game, or a coin flip like they had last year against the New England Patriots and did not get a chance to touch the ball in overtime. We saw what he could do last week in the second quarter when he ripped off 28 points against the Houston Texans, when he seemed like a cat with his tail on fire running. And then all of a sudden they scored on 7 consecutive possessions, touchdowns, Charlton, going through the third quarter. This is a team that has showed everybody in the NFL the type of firepower that they have. I don't see them wanting or willing to get down to the Tennessee Titans like they did to the Houston Texans, because I think they took the Houston Texans for granted last week.
Yeah.
I think after having a loss earlier in the season to the Tennessee Titans, that bitter taste is still in their mouth, Charlton. And I see Mr. Mahomes coming out, and I see him with venom.
Yeah.
A lot of fireworks. And who do you cover in this receiving corps? They have 5 receivers, Charlton, and if you double up on Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce is wide open. If you double up on Travis Kelce, Robinson is open. McCole Hardman has really stepped up. Sammy Watkins had a great game. He could have another great game. And we saw what Robinson was doing out of the backfield.
Yep.
There's too many weapons for the Kansas City Chiefs to lose.
There's a lot of weapons, Big C. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We're going to come right back and finish running down the preview of the AFC Championship game between Kansas City and also Tennessee. We'll take the Big C timeout. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing on Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. You just got to have the app. Back to the talk, Big C, of the Chiefs and the Titans. When the Chiefs fell to the Titans earlier in the year, it was 35-32. The Chiefs actually had the lead in that game. But Patrick Mahomes was just coming off of that twisted kneecap that he had. It's amazing he's still playing. And the defense for Kansas City was not as stout as it's been right now. I think they've outscored in the last, 2 games, of course, last game with Houston, 51-7. 51-7? That's what they've outscored in the last game, and against one team, of course. But Houston's still a playoff team. When you look at the great Derrick Henry, and I love what a lot of people are saying, and I want to get your thoughts, they say you got to hit him low. That good old boy had 188 yards, 22 attempts, and the first time they played, 6'3", 247 pounds. There are guys bigger than him in the NFL. Oftentimes they're not running the football. But tell me, what does it mean to hit a guy low? I mean, that just means to me below the waist, because you don't want to hit a guy in the kneecap, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, in the old days, Charlton, if you hit anybody in the ankles, it's like cutting down a tree. He's going to fall.
Yeah.
When I look at the modern-day player in the NFL, they're out there trying to not get grass stains on their uniform, so they want to stay off the turf.
Yep.
You're not going to go up and grab Derrick Henry by the shoulder pads thinking that you're going to bring him down. He's 265 pounds. There's no defensive back on the Kansas City Chiefs more than 205. So that's a mismatch right there. I know everybody's talking about making business decisions. Make the business decision of going down, hitting him in his ankle.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're going to bring it down if you're a defensive back. Don't think you're going to go up there and grab him around the shoulder pads. He's going to stiff arm you. He's going to posterize you like he did
Thomas.
The boy from
Thomas.
Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas, yeah.
He's going to make you a lead block. He's just going to push you down the field.
Yeah.
So this is the playoff. This is for all the marbles. You're not trying to injure a player, but you're trying to get him to the ground. There's cut blocks in the NFL all the time. There's cut tackles in the NFL all the time.
Yeah.
They do it to receivers. You're going to have to do it to Derrick Henry if you're Kansas City and want to win this game.
And if they really need some help, there's a skit by the late Richard Pryor. He said what they used to do to Jim Brown is people tried to poke Jim Brown in the eyes. They tried to grab him by the ankles and pull him down by his hair. And they say, Jim, could you please just fall down? My kids are watching. You're making me look embarrassed. You think they should go back and summon the late Richard Pryor? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I had a former teammate come out of your favorite university out there in Southern California.
USC,
Donnie
baby.
Hickman.
Yeah.
Donnie used to always say, hey, if they're going to beat me, I hit him in the ankles. He go down. He was an offensive tackle. He had no problems cutting a defensive end anytime he tried to go around and get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, they protect the quarterback. They protect running back. Henry's seen it all. He saw it in high school. He saw it in Alabama. He's seen it in the NFL. But he's still the NFL's leading rusher and did not play in every game. So whether they hit him low or high, for me, it feels like if Kansas City can get above the 30-point margin again, they'll probably win this game again. Their defense was not playing that good when they lost 35-32. If you look at what the Titans have done, they scored 20 points against New England, but that was a pick six to get them to 20. And then the game they just won against Baltimore, where Baltimore hadn't played a game in almost a month. So they were sluggish until, late in the game, Big C. So those things are all behind us. I'm really looking forward to great environments at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, also Levi Stadium in San Francisco. Two great cities, great organizations. It's nice to have some new blood. If there is, Big C, a winner for the NFL, it's the fact that every year we can look at having, different teams, but there's still a lot of stars. We have a Hall of Famer and Aaron Rodgers, who'll be in the Hall of Fame. And if you look on the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes, most likely in the future will be a Hall of Famer. I think the way Henry runs the ball, if he keeps healthy, he'll be a Hall of Famer. And even though when you look at the 49ers, I think Richard Sherman will end up in the Hall of Fame someday, even though they want to build a team around other people. So we still have new blood, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we don't have new blood in the Super Bowl. When you look at this, Charlton, all four of these teams have been in the Super Bowl in the past. The 49ers have been there several times. When you think about the Tennessee Titans, they have made one appearance.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs have made two appearances in the Super Bowl. The Green Bay Packers have been there several times.
Yeah.
So we don't have new blood when you look at it. We just have teams that have not been there in a while. New blood would be the opportunity for a team that has never been to the Super Bowl to go to the Super Bowl. And it's only 5 teams left in the NFL that have never been to the Super Bowl. So we just don't have the New England Patriots for the first time in a decade in the Super Bowl as far as when people want to consider that.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I look forward to it. I hope the weather holds up in Miami. And before we get on to a few other things in football, and I know all the bettors and the guys who always call and say, hey, you want to put some money down? I got an inside tip. Like, how you have an inside tip if you're not in the game? I never quite understood that. But some guys are right. NFL biggest postseason comebacks. I don't know if we're going to see any comeback wins this weekend. If you're going to win, you probably have to get out in front. Buffalo versus Houston. They came back from 32 points down. That was January 3rd, 1993. That was a wild card game. They trailed 35-3 and then won it in overtime at 41-38. Indianapolis came from 28 back versus Kansas City January 4th, 2014. That was a wild card game. They trailed 38-10. They came back and won 45-44, Big C. And just like last week, Kansas City's been in company behind games. New England, they came back from 25 versus Atlanta. And it was February 5th Super Bowl in 2017. They trailed 28-3. They came back and won 34-28 in overtime. 24 points. San Francisco Giants, I can't forget this game. It was amazing. To the New York Giants, it was January 5th, 2003, a wild card game. They trailed 38-14. They came back and won 39-38. And also, 24 points. Kansas City versus Houston, January 12th, 2020. Divisional playoff game, trailed 24-0. Came back and won 51-31. Big C, we're always seeing people come from behind. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's what teams have done in the past, Charlton. This is not a position that you want to be in, being down and hopefully coming back. The greatest comeback was Frank Wright. He was a backup quarterback with the Buffalo Bills when they went on to their fourth Super Bowl appearance and ended up losing that game, Charlton. But, I don't see anybody getting down that far this weekend and having an opportunity to come back.
No, I look forward to a lot of good things. Whether you're watching a game with your parents, a father, son, mother, or brothers or sisters, I want to get on a few thoughts about the father and sons. What father and son duels have won NFL playoff games as head coaches in the NFL, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's a rare feat when you think about father and son duels that have won playoff games. You think about Kyle and Mike Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is coaching this weekend against the Green Bay Packers. He and his dad both have won playoff games. Then you go to Bum and Wade Phillips. Bum with the Houston Texans. Wade Phillips also won. His son, as a head coach, won a playoff game. So those are the only two playoff candidates as father and son that have won coaches in the NFL, won playoff games in the NFL.
That is amazing. Also, I want to ask you another question, Big C. Who is the most important non-quarterback this weekend in the NFL playoffs as a non-quarterback, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, we've put a lot of emphasis on the quarterbacks. Everyone talks about the 4 starting quarterbacks that go this weekend. I think for the Green Bay Packers, I think Aaron Jones is the key factor as far as the Packers being able to advance. If the 49ers cannot curtail him defensively, then the Green Bay Packers will have a big day. When we look at the San Francisco 49ers, I think of Eric Armstead, the defensive tackle for the 49ers. He is the guy who has to get the push up the middle against the Green Bay Packers offensive line to put the pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I know we talk about Garoppolo, we talk about Bosa, we talk about Breda, all those great players from the 49ers. But Eric Armstead is going to be the key to the San Francisco 49ers. When we look across the board at the Kansas City Chiefs, everybody knows what Mr. Mahomes can do as quarterback.
Yeah.
But he has a plethora of weapons at receiver and tight end that is unmatched by any team in the NFL. And I look at what Travis Kelce did last week for 3 touchdown passes, 140 yards receiving against the Houston Texans. Is there an answer for the Tennessee Titans? Do they have an answer for Travis Kelce? Because if you try to double up on him, Charlton, you got to pick your poison with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, yeah.
We all know what Derrick Henry has done for the Tennessee Titans. We know Ryan Tannehill has not had 100-yard passing yet. But if you want to run with the Tennessee Titans, you have to go as Derrick Henry goes. And if Derrick Henry is unstoppable, then the Tennessee Titans will end up in the Super Bowl.
I tell you what, it's going to be amazing just seeing these 2 games. We started football way back in the summertime with the OTAs and guys taking off their shirt and flexing how big and strong their muscles are at Big C. So now we're getting down to where there's just 4 teams standing, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this. I want to focus on a couple of NFL player milestones, reached in the 2019 season. I know we're in 2020. Can't wait for kickoff to start, but we still got a couple of games to get through to decide the champion for this year, Big C. But think about Drew Brees. They had to feel a little bit disappointed down in New Orleans again. This is a team that had everything going for them, and they get knocked off again by a team that got knocked off the next week. I know they have to be licking their wounds, but Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints, he became the NFL's all-time leading passer, 77,416 yards, and all-time touchdown leading, 547 throws. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think of the accomplishments that Drew Brees has had in his NFL career, the people that he has passed to get to this place in NFL history, Charlton, this is a guy who a team felt that he wasn't good enough to keep in the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah.
You see the plight of those 2 franchises since he's gone to New Orleans and what San Diego has not been able to do since Drew Brees has left. This is an exercise in futility, a guy that's too small, that's not fast enough, whose arm is not strong enough. But this shows what work ethic is and pride. Drew Brees, no one will ever call him the greatest quarterback in NFL history.
No.
But he has all the numbers to substantiate that.
77,416 yards, and he's not retired. He's still got some years left in him, and 547 touchdowns. Let the man stay healthy and play another couple of years. He'll have 600 touchdown passes and well over 80,000 yards passing. Big C, just amazing. Also, I want to go to a guy who's also had some surgery. You think about the great Frank Gore out of the University of Miami. Now the last time the 49ers were in the Super Bowl, Frank Gore was in the backfield. I remember he was stopped, I believe, by Frank Gore against Ray Lewis, and they ran him. He had like a 15-yard run down at the 5 with about a minute and a half to play. And from there, the 49ers chose to pass the ball instead of running the ball with the guy who's still running. The great Frank Gore moved into 3rd place, all-time NFL rushing, 15,347 yards, and he needed 5 more yards rushing in the Super Bowl against the Ravens, and the 49ers would have had another championship, but they chose not to give it to this guy. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Frank Gore, this is a guy that everyone said coming out of the University of Miami potentially would not have an NFL career after having dual ACL tears while he was in college, Charlton. But he's been a workman since he's been in the NFL. He's gone through a couple teams. But you think about this accomplishment, passing the great Barry Sanders for 3rd place all-time during the season. This has been an exercise in futility for Frank Gore. This is what work ethic will do when you're in the NFL. 15 years, 15,000 yards, Charlton.
Yeah, he's done his thing for many different teams. Also did his thing up in Indianapolis a couple years, too. He just keeps bringing it. I love the way he plays. Also, a player that everybody knows. You just need to. You can say him by his last name, Brady. Tom Brady, New England Patriots, moved into the second place all-time with 541 passing touchdowns. And no, he's not going to retire, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about him chasing Drew Brees, they both passed Peyton Manning during this past season, Charlton, and everyone looked at Peyton Manning's records as being untouchable. Tom Brady has more Super Bowl appearances and victories than anybody in NFL history. Now he's second on the all-time touchdown list, Charlton, and he's never done it with a core of great receivers.
Isn't that amazing? 541. I will say the great Randy Moss might be one of those, Big C, but he was obviously a Hall of Famer too. Another running back I want to throw at you. Here's a guy that just also, it's amazing to talk about guys that are among the rushing leaders, Big C, but they've also had some knee injuries and some, major surgery. The great Adrian Peterson, Washington Redskins. Now, he did his things at Oklahoma, also for the Minnesota Vikings. He moved into fourth place all time, 111 rushing touchdowns, and that's after reconstruction with his body parts. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's been a workman, and you think back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with the Washington Redskins when everyone said Adrian Peterson's career was over. We know the 2,000-yard season he had with the Minnesota Vikings after having his knee reconstructed, Charlton. But to move into fourth place all-time rushing touchdowns in the NFL, he's right behind Marcus Allen with 123.
You think about how the great Marcus Allen was. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Marcus Allen was also coached by the great Tom Flores that Big C Sports inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You don't have to wait for the other guys to do that, the great Tom Flores. Big C, other NFL players and milestones reached in 2019. Great news came out today. He's going to come back and play next year. The great Larry Fitzgerald, Arizona Cardinals, moved into the second place all-time in receptions, 1,378 yards. Actually, 1,378 receiving yards and 17,083 yards. Amazing athlete, and he's going to add to it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Out of the University of Pittsburgh, Charlton, Larry Fitzgerald has been a classy gentleman ever since he's been in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals, Charlton. He's only behind the great Jerry Rice in receptions and yardage in NFL history. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame when he ever decides to hang it up, but he wants to do at least one more year with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he's out golfing right now, Big C, so a lot of guys can move into a different way of relaxing, if you could call golf relaxing. Another great player, Terrell Suggs, Kansas City Chiefs, moved into 8th place, all-time career sacks, 139. I believe that good boy came out of the Pac-12 or Pac-10 at the time at Arizona State. We know he did his thing with the Baltimore Ravens. 139 sacks is a lot of double teams that you're getting off of, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, T. Sizzle has always been one of the quarterback's worst nightmare during his career with the Baltimore Ravens. He was a late acquisition by the Kansas City Chiefs this year, Charlton. At 139 is a great career in the NFL, but the all-time record, Bruce Smith, 200.
That's amazing, Big C. The NFL's 25 best postseason players from the Super Bowl era in the final 12 minutes. I know a lot of people are looking forward to who's going to make some waves. Will it be the great Patrick Henry or Derrick Henry? Will it be Patrick Mahomes? Maybe they should have a law firm, the Patrick Henry, Derrick Henry show. Patrick Mahomes, Derrick Henry law firm, Big C. Will it be Garoppolo? Will it be Rodgers? We don't know, but we're going to find out. What we do know for a fact, NFL 25 best postseason players from the Super Bowl era. I'll just bring out some names, Big C, and you just give me a quick rundown. The great Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, and the great Troy Aikman, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at that list, Charlton, Tom Brady, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 victories. Terry Bradshaw, 4 undefeated Super Bowl appearances for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that steel curtain defense. We think about
Troy Aikman, Bradshaw.
You talk about Joe Montana.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who was a third-round draft pick that no one ever expected anything of, but he led the 49ers to glory, Charlton.
Amazing, and they'll be talking about him in San Francisco this weekend. Also, Terry Bradshaw, Troy Aikman, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I think about Troy Aikman, this is a guy who was the architect of the Dallas Cowboys run during the 80s and 90s, well, early 90s, Charlton, when they were winning those championships. He was the guy pulling the trigger. Terry Bradshaw, with those 4 straight Super Bowl wins with the Pittsburgh Steelers, undoubtedly, I think when you look at Super Bowl quarterbacks,
yeah,
unquestionably the Super Bowl quarterback of all time.
Amazing. Peyton Manning and the great Bart Starr, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Peyton Manning is a guy who's had an illustrious career in the NFL. But when I look at Bart Starr still today has the greatest passing percentage in the playoffs and Super Bowl in NFL history. He's 2-0 in the Super Bowl. He also won 5 straight NFC championships.
Oh, that's amazing. The greatest show on turf. Also, we can think about the great Kurt Warner and Eli Manning, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, here's Kurt Warner. This is a guy who came through the free agency route into the NFL. No one thought he was good enough to play, but he could produce the greatest show on turf, the highest scoring offense in the NFL. He took 2 different franchises to the Super Bowl, the St. Louis Rams, as well as the Arizona Cardinals. Eli Manning, we know what he did with 2 miraculous passes in the Super Bowl, Charlton, that propelled the Giants to Super Bowl victory.
The great Pat Bowen said, "This one's for John." You think about the great John Elway, also the great Roger the Dodger Staubach. Big C, your thoughts?
John Elway has a lot of accolades, Charlton, for almost winning the Super Bowl. But he finally won 2 against the Atlanta Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. When I think about Roger the Dodger Staubach, Charlton, he was the trigger man in the early success of the Dallas Cowboys in the 70s when they were one of the most dominant teams in the NFL. They made 5 Super Bowl appearances under this quarterback, Charlton.
Amazing when you think about these names and just going back in time, Big C. Brett Favre. I was remembering him in Something About Mary, the great Brett Favre. They call him Brett Favre in the movie. And then Russell Houdini Wilson, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Russell Wilson, as we think about this young quarterback, Charlton, to be up there with the greats, he's never had a losing season since he's been in the NFL. He's made 2 Super Bowl appearances, winning 1 of those, Charlton. He's going to have a long and lustrous career, and he's going to have many more opportunities to get back to the big game.
You think about the greatest receiver of all time, stats-wise, I still think it could be a guy by the name of Julio Jones when it's all said and done. But you can't not shame the great run in the mountain, run in the hill, Jerry Rice. Also, James Lofton, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jerry Rice, we know of his accolades with the San Francisco 49ers and leading the game as the NFL's all-time top receiver, receptions, touchdowns, and yards. You look at James Lofton, Charlton, he's in the NFL Hall of Fame, but he was a stalwart with the Buffalo Bills. Even though they went to the Super Bowl 4 times and never got a victory, he was an all-star performer each year.
All the time, he was always getting open. The great Lynn Swann, Big C, and the great Drew Pearson, man, they had some battles back in the day.
Well, we think about Lynn Swann, Charlton. He was always one for the big stage, and the biggest stage was the Super Bowl, and Lynn Swann was always one to perform on that big stage. Drew Pearson had some of the most miraculous catches in NFL history when we think about the Hail Mary between he and Roger Staubach, Charlton, that got the Dallas Cowboys to the Super Bowl over the Minnesota Vikings. Drew Pearson was one of those receivers also that was left out of the Hall of Fame ballot this year. Even though he made the all-decade team, Charlton, of the 70s, he wasn't good enough to get into the Hall of Fame.
That's amazing, Big C. Emmitt Smith, just give me the ball. Emmitt Smith and the great Marcus Allen. Talk about 2 good boys, Big C, your thoughts?
You talk about 2 running backs that could put their teams on their back, Charlton, when it came to Super Bowls. Both of these quarterbacks hold that, running backs hold that mantra. We know what Emmitt Smith did with the Dallas Cowboys, leading them in rushing and getting them to 3 Super Bowl victories. Marcus Allen, we all remember that miraculous run he had against the Washington Redskins, Charlton, in that Super Bowl down in Tampa that pushed the Oakland Raiders, well, at that time, the Los Angeles Raiders, 3rd Super Bowl victory with he and Jim Plunkett.
Think about another great running back, another pair of the great Franco Harris, also the great Terrell Davis. One of them ran for 200 yards in the Super Bowl and still wasn't MVP, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about these 2 backs, Franco Harris hoisted 4 Super Bowl trophies, Charlton, with the Pittsburgh Steelers along with Terry Bradshaw. This was a guy out of Penn State that had a nice career with the Steelers. We think about Terrell Davis, whose career was cut short. He's also the last running back, Charlton, to lead the NFL in rushing and also have a Super Bowl title.
Love these players, Big C. The great Richard Dent and the great Charles Haley, Big C, your thoughts?
We talk about the quarterbacks all the time, but these are the guys who make the quarterbacks job uncomfortable, Charlton, throughout the season, in the playoffs, and the Super Bowl. And when you think about Charles Haley has 5 Super Bowl trophies, Charlton, 5 Super Bowl rings. Richard Dent, the most perennial pass rusher in playoff history. So these are 2 tremendous defensive ends.
It's amazing, Big C. The great Mel Blount and also Devin McCourty, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about Mel Blount, one of the most fierce defensive backs of his time. 4 Super Bowl rings with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not only could he cover anybody one-on-one, Charlton, but he didn't have a problem covering up, laying the wood. Devin McCourty with the New England Patriots, Charlton, has been a stalwart in that defensive secondary during their Super Bowl runs of the 2000s.
Big C, I need somebody to give me a sack. The great Joe Green and Bruce Smith, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I think about Joe Green, this is one of the most underrated defensive linemen of all time, Charlton. 4 Super Bowl rings, and we've talked about many players from that Super Bowl era with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that defense was led by Joe Green.
Yep.
Bruce Smith was the NFL's all-time leading sacker when he retired, Charlton. But in those 4 Super Bowl appearances with the Buffalo Bills, he was always that fearsome force coming off the edge against those opponents, even though they did not win.
You know, we always talk about I need a quarterback to drive me down the field. I'm down 28-24. I got 80 yards to go, but there's only 2 minutes left. We talked about quarterbacks. What if I need someone to kick me the game-winning field goal, Big C? Adam Vinatieri, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the game-winning field goal, Adam Vinatieri, as many times as people want to talk about the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowls and Tom Brady getting the MVP, Adam Vinatieri personally is responsible for 3 of those New England Patriots Super Bowl victories because he kicked the game-winning field goal, Charlton, at the end of the game to catapult the New England Patriots to 3 Super Bowl victories. And also did it with the Indianapolis Colts. He has 4 Super Bowl titles, Charlton, as a kicker.
I remember him kicking it during the Tuck Rule also against the Raiders in the snow back in New England. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I want to get your thoughts in the final 3 minutes. So much for being the #1 overall draft pick at quarterback in the NFL and making the Super Bowl. We have the great Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. He was the 24th pick in the 24th pick in the first round in 2005. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, Aaron Rodgers had to sit a long time in the green room during the draft. Alex Smith was the first overall pick in that draft out of Utah, the quarterback. But Aaron Rodgers had to wait to the 24th pick, Charlton, and NFL history has been made by him on many occasions.
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't mind sitting in the green room nowadays, Big C. Jimmy Garoppolo, San Francisco 49ers, second round, the 62nd pick by the New England Patriots. That was in 2014, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everyone thought that he would be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. They also selected Jacoby Brissett the following year. Both of those quarterbacks got traded. You look at Tom Brady, he's out of the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo is playing for the NFC Championship.
Still doing his thing. Ryan said ain't so. Tannehill, Tennessee Titans, first round, 8th pick, Miami Dolphins. They sent him packing. That was a 2012, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Ryan Tannehill, he is the highest drafted quarterback left in this year's playoffs in the NFL. He was drafted by the Miami Dolphins. Things didn't work out there, Charlton. Even though the Dolphins are paying half of his salary this year, he is with the Tennessee Titans with an opportunity to get back to Miami, to his former home stadium, in the Super Bowl.
I'm sure he appreciates the paychecks, Big C. Final guy, the great Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, first round. He was a 10th pick in 2017. Say it ain't so, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Mr. Mahomes, the Chicago Bears felt that Mitch Trubisky was a better option than drafting Mr. Mahomes, and I don't know if they're regretting that or not, but Mr. Mahomes has made back-to-back trips to the AFC Championship game, Charlton. He is the most dynamic quarterback in the NFL. I know a lot of people were enamored by Lamar Jackson, but what Mr. Mahomes does with his arm, we've never seen that in the NFL. We saw Dan Marino. Everyone thought he was lights out. But what Mr. Mahomes has done in his 2+ years, well, his 2 years, really, he hasn't played 2 complete seasons in the NFL. We've never seen it before.
That's so amazing. And also, breaking news again, we've already broken earlier, that Big C Sports is the only sportscast in the universe to acknowledge the great Tom Flores as being the second winningest coach in the playoff history through 10 games, and only second to the great Vince Lombardi. And you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you that you deserve it. Tom Flores, you deserve it. Other programs will announce it coming up in the next year. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, what I'm looking forward to, Charlton, is a nice, relaxing evening and getting over to Sunday. We're looking at 2 NFC and AFC playoff games that will propel teams to the Super Bowl, Charlton. Everyone's lived for this point throughout the football season. We had a great national championship game in New Orleans last weekend, well, Monday night with the LSU Tigers and the Clemson Tigers. Will we have even more exciting games this Sunday in the NFL playoffs?
We will have some exciting games. We also got a fight down in Las Vegas. It might be staged for Conor McGregor to win over the great Cowboy. I'm sure some people will tune into that. Also, NBA basketball, Chicago at Philadelphia, Minnesota at Indiana, Washington at Toronto, Cleveland at Memphis, Miami at Oklahoma City, Atlanta at San Antonio, and Portland at Dallas. You can always follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.